Okay, gents, let's switch gears now and focus on the Premier League title race. My question to you guys is simply this. Is this a two-horse race for the Premier League title this season? No, it's not Man City and Liverpool. Man City and Arsenal. Arsenal are top of the table, just 1 point ahead of Man City. And Andy, I want to come to you. You smirked there when I said that. I was at the Emirates at the weekend. I saw the way that they just blew away Tottenham at times. The creativity, the quality, the balance of the team is all right. And even the players they had coming off the bench. Such a strong squad right now. And identity that Mikel Arteta has worked really hard to really just put together the last few seasons. Been a lot of ups and downs, but now we're seeing all that hard work recruitment-wise, the philosophy, the culture, all come to fruition in these opening couple of months of the season. But it's only an opening couple of months. So are we getting ahead of ourselves here, adding Arsenal into the title race, or do you think they're legitimately up there with City and the only team that can really challenge them for the Premier League title this season?
What do you think my answer is going to be?
As a Tottenham fan, I can already guess, but please.
It's not even that. There's actual logic behind it. I promise. That it's still an incredibly young team, tied for the youngest average age this season, 24 and a half years old. And if we're talking about a title race, them going head to head over 38 games against a team that has won back-to-back titles, that has won 4 in 5 years, chasing their 5th and 6th, also chasing Champions League. Like, Arsenal are a very, very good team, and we're going to talk about why. We're going to talk about a lot of similarities that they have with Manchester City as well. But at this point in 2022 to 23 Premier League season, they are not the same as Manchester City. They are not the same thing. They are not the same size club or strength of squad. There's just still a difference that exists between those two things. And Liverpool were the one team for the last handful of years that could just about get there, that could push them pretty far, even beat them to the title in one season. But Arsenal, I think they have the potential, if they can keep this group together for a couple of more years. Manchester City go through what's going to be kind of a forced rebuild and evolution as they begin to get a little bit. That's actually a very, very veteran squad. And so I just look at the experience factor that's involved there, the depth of squad that City have now. And of course, Erling Haaland, who is, on pace, 66 goals at this point. I don't know how anybody, and this is not to put Arsenal down or slight them whatsoever, I don't know how anybody stays within 10 points of this City team by the end of the season.
That's a good point. We're saying it's a two-horse race that Arsenal would be the closest, but obviously I think we all agree that Man City are head and shoulders above the rest, and it's going to be difficult for anybody to stay with them. But Nick, I mean, you wagged your finger there. Do you think someone else is closer to City than Arsenal?
So, not necessarily. What I'm going to tell you is the same thing I said last year. I want to stick to my guns. I think the 6-pointer games between the top 4 teams remain a big deal. I think the class is such that not all of the big 6 teams this year. Liverpool's put themselves in a bad spot. Man United's put themselves in a bad spot. But I'm even looking at Tottenham, who has an incredible game in, game out tactical manager, a game planner like that. I'm looking at Chelsea now with Graham Potter and the way that squad is still coming together, and a dynamic player like Raheem Sterling, Cucurella being on one side and James on the other. And I'm thinking that it's either a 1-horse title race or it's a 4-horse title race, because the reason is in these, and Andy now is grimacing because of Tottenham, which is funny, but I'm thinking about these in-game matches, the big 6-point swings. And it wasn't too long ago, maybe, was it last year or 2 years ago, that City only lost 4 games, but 2 of them were to Tottenham? Well, I do think that the field is such that just like groups, I don't know, team 8 to 20, you wouldn't be surprised if a single one was somehow involved in a relegation fight. From 1 to 6, I think there is room for a team that handles itself in the big games to still be within 10 points, as you said, of Man City. I think Man City's going to win the league. I think as long as Pep and Haaland are there, they're going to win the league. But if it's not a 1-horse race, it's 3 or 4 horses, and we won't know who those horses are really. Again, my refrain, right? Until the World Cup.
That's true. That is very true. I think the one, not false hope, but the one reason I give Arsenal have even more hope than they probably should have is because Man City are so focused every single season on winning the Champions League. And I feel like down the stretch after the World Cup, they are going to be so focused now, especially with Haaland, that they're going to say, right, this is our chance now. This guy in this form if he's fit, if he's fresh after not playing in the World Cup, by the way, this is our time to kick on and really take that competition by storm and actually finally win it. So that could play into Arsenal's hands a little bit. I don't know. I just feel like they have a really good balance. Again, I was there at the weekend, so maybe this is recency bias, and I'm seeing how the fans are reacting, the managers reacting to that, the players, the unity. I mean, you got guys like Granit Xhaka, who was just down and out, never going to play for Arsenal again. And his redemption story, the whole stadium was singing his name. He was applauding, scored a great goal. You have great stories and great characters throughout that Arsenal team. Andy, they are very young. Great point. But I think that's also a massive positive for them. And yeah, I'm trying not to get too high on Arsenal. As Arsenal's fans in the comments, I know I'm always telling us they'll find some kind of way of messing this up. But it's hard to not be positive about Arsenal right now. And Andy, just to look at these teams, I mean, the fact that Arsenal are doing so well, a lot of it's down to Man City, right? Arteta, his job as an assistant under Pep Guardiola, the training style, and the fact that they were able to take Zinchenko and Gabriel Jesus from Man City this summer. That's been a huge bonus for their winning mentality of the group and taking them to the next level. Yeah. So are there any other similarities? I mean, even the style of play, right? It's like watching a Man City South, if you will, here in England, because they are very, very similar in the way that they play, the way the fullbacks come in, overloads in midfield. We saw it against Tottenham at the weekend. They just couldn't handle that when Ben White and Zinchenko were tucking inside. So it's a lot of similarities. So in a way, Man City have almost created another title contender for them to go against.
Yeah, it is interesting. And also the same summer and the same transfer window, they both landed their striker as well, where for a couple of seasons, or at least a season for Arsenal, there were questions over, who's going to be that guy up top after Aubameyang fell out and everything that went into that situation occurred. And the fact that one of them came from the other, it is really interesting. Spurs have been the one team for the last couple of years that have consistently challenged and beaten Manchester City. And so I kind of took that thought with what we're talking about here and the similarities and thought, well, the matchup, the way that they play, the way that they can frustrate teams makes them a fairly tough matchup for Arsenal. And I came away so impressed with the way that Arsenal played because they didn't give Spurs a chance to even get started in the game. The first 4 minutes of the game was all Arsenal possession. And so they showed that they've got a new kind of newfound ruthlessness about them that they maybe not have had in the past. And there is certainly massive progression that I think has occurred with that squad. Falling apart down the stretch last season, I think, was obviously a big lesson for them. Clearly, they sorted through that and they have learned from that, and they've come out and even better to start this season. But again, I just look at City and say I don't know how anybody can compete or compare to what that is, because I don't know if we're going to do it this season or next year or 5 or 10 years from now, but one day we're going to look back at this team and say, wow, that was really something special. And we didn't realize it maybe quite in the moment because we were still living it at the time.
I'm already thinking about Man City and what they have to do to remind me of my favorite team ever, which is 08-09 Barcelona. And it's a Pep Guardiola project. And when I really started to admire him, you'll remember that team beat Man United for the Champions League final. But Andy, let me jump in here real quickly. I really think there's a shout for Tottenham. I know there are reasons to be kind of down on the project right now if you're looking short term, but you and I even were speaking about what it looked like beforehand and a couple of the missed chances. This is a Tottenham team that also drew Chelsea away and could have won that game. It was a very even game. I know the West Ham draw is a little out there, but I really think on a week-to-week basis, the way we've seen them punish inferior teams, if they can continue to do that, they can stay in the discussion and circle these big games on their calendar. I really think Tottenham, it's hard to say it today because it's so easy to be reactive after a big game, but I really think they're a lot closer to being the genuine article than a lot of people want to admit.
I think this game told us – oh, sorry, Joe. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead, then.
Okay. I think this game told us where Spurs fit in the league. I think they are very, very comfortably top 4 this season. They might be the 3rd best team in the league. We'll see what Potter is able to do and how quickly with Chelsea. But to me, I think stylistically in the way that they play, how kind of I don't want to say defensive, but passive, the way that they're reactive to the other team, I think they are going to do what you said, Nick. I think they are going to be nearly impossible for the lesser teams, if you will, to beat them because they don't beat themselves. That's been an issue for a long time for Spurs and a lot of teams in kind of that almost there in the title race, but not quite there, you would have games where they would just find a way to lose a game that they never should. I don't think this team will do that, but I think there is a definite jump in the way that Arsenal, and probably we will see City whenever they eventually get to play them, can just dominate the game now in a way, because, to go back to the point I made a couple minutes ago, because they both have a center forward now. I think that clearly was a big issue for City against Spurs, and especially against Conte, because the way that he can tactically draw the game up. But I think introducing a player like Haaland, and for Arsenal as well, for Jesus, who was incredibly busy on the weekend, I think that is kind of the thing that puts them over the top. And I know Spurs have Harry Kane, but they're not quite using him in the same way. And so I think there are limitations to how good Spurs can be. They're a very, very solid team, top four. But I think that's a big jump to whatever City are going to, and Arsenal as well. I think that there's a sizable gap, I think, between those two right now, just for what Arsenal's ceiling could be. I think Spurs' ceiling is much lower.
2 points from me. If Arsenal lose Gabriel Jesus, that's big problems for them. I think, as good as Nketiah, Martinelli, and others.
If he wears out.
Yeah, that's a huge blow for them. And then, of course, I think in Tottenham's sense, I feel like they're very similar to Antonio Conte's Chelsea team when he first turned up at Chelsea and won the league. They've got quality. They frustrate teams. They frustrated City that season. They've got that in their locker. But I just feel like they are a couple of players still away from being that title challenging team. It's still a project. Let's see if Conte can last the course this season, because he already seems to be getting a little bit annoyed. And another team we haven't even talked about in the title conversation, all of us kind of thought they'd be there at the start of the season, Nick, Liverpool. I mean, Jurgen Klopp's side, all over the place defensively. Going forward, Salah hasn't hit top form. They're missing Sadio Mane. They can't quite figure out the combinations. It's difficult. I mean, Klopp's talking about losing confidence. They've also had a lot of injury problems, but they could have legitimately been 4 or 5-0 down to Brighton at the weekend and had no complaints whatsoever about it, which is crazy to say. So is this just a blip for Liverpool, Nick, or is this them pretty much out of the title race already? Because they're 11 points below Arsenal at this point. I mean, that seems, even at this early stage of the season, like a heck of a lot to try and claw back. What do you think?
Well, here's the thing. Match in hand, first of all. Nunez had to hit his stride, and Salah isn't finishing his chances. So I'm not ruling them out yet. I think it would be foolish to do so. Here's the thing with Liverpool at the moment, however, it does seem like they have an attitude issue. And I mentioned it a couple years ago. Andy mentioned it earlier this year. There are shades of Klopp's final season at Dortmund. Not that he's going to leave, but that this attitude that everybody bought into, that we're going to overcome the odds, we're going to overcome bad luck, we're going to overcome everything. Well, now bad luck and not finishing, they haven't overcome it. And I don't think at the moment there's an in-game answer of that confidence and we know what to do. I think they'll figure it out. I don't think Klopp's going anywhere. I don't think he should go anywhere. But they need an attitude adjustment, because you're starting to see in Virgil van Dijk and a couple other players on the field, they are almost looking for excuses the way we hear those. We've been making fun of Klopp in his press conferences, and I think there's a little bit of a trickle down right now.
There's my point on Liverpool. Some of the murmurings here about sort of the net spend arguments, and saying over the years, when you actually look at how many players that they've had to sell to bring in others. I mean, look at this summer. They sold Sadio Mane, brought in Nunez for a lot of money, but obviously it's just, Andy's back again. There he is. Obviously, it's just, I think I would like to see Klopp back to a little bit more, considering how much Chelsea has spent, United, City, and even Arsenal. I think that's probably part of this as well. They're probably hanging on, Nick, like you said, to Van Dijk and other players, and they've gone all in on Salah and that new contract. But in an ideal world, I think he would have wanted to freshen up this squad even more, especially in midfield, given some of the issues there, and Fabinho, Thiago, Henderson being injured at different points, Naby Keita never really working out. So I would like for next season, if Klopp is still around, for Liverpool to really go big. Because if you do look historically at how much money they've spent, they still spent a lot less than all of the other contenders they're up there with. And it's always been one star player going out, another one coming in, that kind of scenario. So, yeah, let's wait and see. The Premier League title race is going to be really interesting, though. Seems like at the moment it's City's to lose, doesn't it? They're head and shoulders above the rest. But personally, I feel that if anybody's going to challenge them, it's going to be Arsenal.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch more videos all season long. For even more Premier League content, from original series to live matches, head over to Peacock and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend on USA Network and on Peacock. We will see you over there.